for joining us in this celebration of World Food Day. As global food and nutrition insecurity remains prevalent, the Ministry of Agriculture welcomed the opportunity to share the World Food Day theme with the Ministry of Social Protection to focus on social protection and agriculture, breaking the cycle of rural poverty. Together with our longtime partner, the Food and Agricultural Organization of the United Nations. Additionally, the specific theme of Agriculture Month is exploiting our strength, advancing agriculture and social protection. Both themes highlight agriculture's social protection function. Social protection focuses on reducing socioeconomic risk, vulnerability, extreme poverty, and deprivation. Agricultural interventions such as input subsidies and technology transfer contribute to social protection of poor and vulnerable farmers. These interventions increase household income and income generation capabilities, food security, and build resilience for sustainable livelihood of our people. Today on World Food Day, we reflect on where we are and where we want to go. Guyana, as you know, is a food secure country, but there are pockets of food insecurity which we need to address. Our government has made a commitment to provide a good life to all our citizens, and we believe agriculture has a major role to play in this regard. Data provided by the FAO indicate that 75% of the world's poor live in rural areas, and 90% of them are smallholders. Furthermore, the 21st century added new challenges to resource-poor smallholders as a consequence of global climate change. Amidst us today, climate change is a real living threat for our people, especially since the narrow strip of land that has the administrative, agricultural, commercial, and industrial center of this dear land is 1.4 meters below the high tide mark and is home to almost 90% of the population. With increased occurrences of floods and droughts, like we saw in June, and the present El Nino, it is clear that we need an alternative plan. This is why my desire for agricultural development involves moving away from the low coastal plain, more inland to the intermediate savannas and Ruknuni savannas. Hinterland development is a priority for our government. Since taking office, our president has promoted a green economy. While the challenges to achieve this may appear overwhelming, it is something that I am adamant that we will achieve. It is for these reasons that we are promoting green agricultural industry initiatives which should impact significantly in rural communities. It is for these reasons that we are focusing on improving the drainage and irrigation infrastructure, enhancing the provision of extension services, promoting climate-smart practices, access to markets, management of pests and disease, and small-scale agro-processing activity. Our recently launched National Tree Planting Drive is another important facet from which rural communities can benefit. I cannot overemphasize the importance of fruit trees, from which so many benefits could be derived, especially for rural communities. Adding to this, the Ministry of Agriculture will continue to improve our livestock industry to break the cycle of poverty. You must know we have a competitive advantage in beef. Our cattle are free from major diseases such as foot and mouth and brucellosis, and we have grass species which my stock thrive on, both on the coastland and the savanna. Additionally, the Guyana Livestock Reserve Authority has successful programs to improve cattle breeds through artificial insemination, embryo transfer, and enhancement of breeding stock. I do believe these are important elements of a viable livestock industry. My ministry will actively work to make this a reality. To address the rural cash crop farmers who are in need of low-cost technology, the National Agricultural Research and Extension Institute is promoting the use of on-farm materials to make fertilizers, the use of inocular in bean production to reduce the quantities of nitrogen fertilizers used, and integrated pest management practices to reduce pesticide usage, among other initiatives. This will reduce their dependency on higher input prices and reduce the vulnerability of production systems. On another note, the rice industry, as we are all aware, is facing some challenges. To address some of these, I do believe the Guyana Rice Producers Association has an extremely important role to play. Its role and management structure is defined by the Guyana Rice Producers Association Act and its accompanying regulations. The Guyana Rice Producers Association has a responsibility to encourage all stakeholders in the industry to become members of the association, since one would expect that they all share common interests such as the viability and sustainability of the rice industry. However, in recent years, there has been a tendency towards the proliferation of advocacy groups, which may have divergent positions on particular issues. It is clear to me that the intention of the legislation was to achieve a consensus on positions which would then be represented to the minister. The Rice Producers Association must come forward and state whether it is experiencing difficulties in representing the rice farmers of this country. In such a situation, I am empowered to act in accordance with the legislation and to make regulations where necessary to ensure that rice producers are properly represented. I consider the holding of fair elections to be an imperative of the RPA's mandate. From all I have said, you will agree with me that agriculture can be a pillar on which we build a sustainable and resilient economy to bring equity, prosperity, and social protection for all of our people. I thank all the farmers, fisherfolk, wholesalers, exporters, processors, etc. In fact, all involved in the agriculture sector for the significant contributions they are making to our country, and look forward to their continued support in the days ahead. In closing, let me reaffirm the Ministry of Agriculture's commitment to working with partners to improve food security and breaking the cycle of poverty. And I invite all to enjoy the first agricultural exhibition and fair as we celebrate World Food Day 2015. Thank you very much.
Today's celebration of World Food Day 2015, particularly because the theme seeks to highlight the role of social protection in breaking the cycle of rural poverty. Undoubtedly, the cycle of rural poverty, in spite of all we have achieved, has been pervasive and too many families fall prey generation after generation. You would agree that this trend cannot continue, and it is time for us to break the cycle of rural poverty. Hence, World Food Day is a great opportunity to emphasize the message of zero tolerance for hunger and poverty, and the need for countries, donors, and civil society to work towards sustainable initiatives to reduce hunger and eradicate poverty. There is an urgent need to forge links and promote greater policy coherence and synergies between social protection, food security, agricultural development, and rural poverty reduction. To this end, we in Guyana are collaborating with the Food and Agricultural Organization, working on strategies to encourage better governance of food security from different perspectives, so that the outcome is beneficial to all Guyanese. On this note, I ask that you join me in congratulating the FAO on its 70th anniversary of supporting agriculture to end hunger and poverty throughout the world. Many of you may question the role of social protection, especially since World Food Day seems to be related to agriculture. But the link is undeniably strong, as hunger is often a result of poverty and disempowerment of people, which are crucial social issues. Social protection entails policies and actions which enhance the capacity of poor and vulnerable groups to escape from poverty and better manage risk and human emergencies, including those farmers experiencing such things as flood and drought as we see in Guyana. Social protection can help promote empowerment and security by improving risk management, facilitating higher returns on investment by poor people, and supporting human capital development. The outcome of such interventions is certainly a way out of poverty. In general, the social protection systems operated by governments are not quite as effective, as they tend to suffer from fragmentation, weak coordination, and poor targeting of beneficiaries. Hence, it is crucial that different sectors of government work together to deliver social protection successfully. The good news is that efforts are underway to change those systems in Guyana, and so that those in real need of help receive it. Importantly, this government doesn't believe in providing financial aid to persons merely to get them out of a difficult situation, but we believe in empowering them so that they can manage their situation, create better lives for themselves and for their families. And that is what we will do. For this reason, the Ministry of Social Protection is moving to introduce social security benefits for the entire family, rather than for one person within the family. We believe that it is better to empower an entire family than pay a financial benefit to a single member. Importantly, these benefits will be tied to prerequisites, such as ensuring that the children within the families receiving public assistance are attending school, that they are properly vaccinated and are healthy. For healthy children will be well nourished and more likely to learn in school, and therefore have greater potential for lifting themselves out of poverty, with a decent education, of course. Special attention is also being paid to women in agriculture with the aim of supporting them so that they can sustain their families. Ladies and gentlemen, almost 80% of the world's poor live in rural areas and rely mainly on agriculture for their incomes and food security. Economic growth, especially in agriculture, has been essential in lowering rates of hunger and poverty. And so, we have to boost the capacity of our women in agriculture, as well as encourage families in the rural communities to enhance their farming techniques. In our dear country, the problem is not so much food insufficiency and security, but consuming what we grow. We continue to consume large amounts of imported foods, most of which are grown locally. When we consume local foods, the farmers and sellers earn money to take care of their families. I agree, we need to trade, but we need to balance our imports with our exports. Our import bill in food supplies can be significantly reduced, and that source of revenue can be injected into comprehensive social and agricultural policies that support rural household farming. As we speak, there is a global exhibition in Milan being attended by world leaders to draw attention to the need to use agriculture to fight rural poverty. Here in Guyana, we need to join in the struggle and implement mechanisms to enhance the income of our rural families whose household is farming, whose livelihood, is farming. Their farming venture must not only cater for their personal needs, but must be income-oriented. Such self-sufficiency and sustainability must be promoted through effective programs of farm management, technical expertise, provision of requisite tools and equipment, financial support through cash transfers and vouchers, and education of ways to deal with climate change and human emergency situations. The potential for overcoming rural poverty lies in the support we provide to families. So, as we commemorate World Food Day, let us make a concerted effort to equip and empower our rural families, for this investment constitutes an effective way in breaking the cycle of rural poverty. I ask you the question, can we do it? Yes. And I know the resounding cry would be, yes, we can. I thank you.
With the hope that it would rain. Early at morn, the cloud burst and it began to rain, and everybody ran, oh gosh, the rain, that stupid rain. But it touches the ground and it reaches the seed, and the seed exclaims, ah, isn't this good? I'll germinate with the hope that I have sunlight. Early at morn, the sun blooms in the sky, and the rays of the sun penetrate the realms of the earth. And the plant grows and grows. It gets bigger and bigger. Of all the millions and millions of things, it gets bigger.
Social protection and agriculture. This is a great motto as we aim to break the cycle of rural poverty. Guyana, on this World Food Day, the 16th of October 2015, takes this opportunity to reaffirm its commitment to ensuring greater food security as one of the means of eliminating extreme poverty and hunger within the next 15 years. But what is food security? Food security is a condition which exists when all Guyanese, everywhere, have access to sufficient, safe, nutritious food to maintain a healthy and active life. We learned from the FAO that food security is built on 3 pillars. One is availability, that is, to ensure there is sufficient amounts of food available and consistently too. Second is access, to ensure that there is sufficient resources to obtain appropriate food for a nutritious diet. And third is food use. That is, use that is based on knowledge of basic nutrition and care, as well as adequate water and sanitation. These are the 3 pillars for food security. And these are the 3 pillars we hope to strengthen in Guyana and throughout the Caribbean region over the next 15 years. Food security is important because it will enhance our ability to eradicate extreme poverty. But to break the cycle of poverty, we must understand what are the most vulnerable sections of our population and which are the most susceptible areas in our country. We know that the largest part of our country is our hinterland, the part of our country which encompasses 3/4 of our land space, claimed by Venezuela. The Barima-Waini region, the Cuyuni-Mazaruni region, the Pataro-Separuni region, the Rupununi region, and parts of the upper Demerara-Berbice region. The Rupununi region alone is bigger than Costa Rica. But this is an area in which the population is sparse. So although we have some food insecurity on the coast, it is greatest in this vast hinterland. Many of our districts in the hinterland have less access to irrigation water, so food security becomes a problem. Hinterland poverty becomes pervasive. Guyana has adopted all 17 of the Sustainable Development Goals, and this was confirmed when we were at the United Nations General Assembly and we attended the United Nations Sustainable Development Summit, which was held in New York from 25th to 27th this year. Guyana joined with the international community to pledge confidently that we are going to realize the goals by 2030, all 17 goals, but most particularly Sustainable Goal number 1, that is ending poverty in all its forms, and Sustainable Goal number 2, ending hunger, achieving food security, and improving nutrition, and promoting sustainable agriculture. So that is why we are here today. We're here because we pledged, we're here because we promised. We promised to end hunger, to achieve food security, to stamp out poverty, and to establish sustainable agriculture in our country. Ladies and gentlemen, food security is necessary, but it is not sufficient a condition to eradicate extreme poverty and hunger. Increased agricultural productivity, according to the FAO, benefits the poor. It benefits the poor by reducing the price of food. It benefits the poor by increasing incomes for the poor. It benefits the poor by stimulating greater demand in agricultural areas where most of the world's poor live. Guyana, as you heard before from the Minister of Agriculture, has already achieved food security in 6 important food groups. But food security alone is not evenly spread throughout our country. Most of our food is produced on the coastland, where 80% of Guyanese live. But in the hinterland, there is food insecurity. In the hinterland, there is insecurity because our population is scattered, because it is an area of many small-scale miners and artisans. In certain rural areas, small-scale fishermen are also poor. Other vulnerable sections of our population include marginalized groups in urban areas, some persons who are laborers, some persons who are single parents, and unfortunately the elderly, who might receive, even if they're registered in NIS, very small pensions. And of course, there are rural laborers and persons in the hinterland and elsewhere who must survive, and in many cases are obliged to support a family on very limited resources. Food security is also affected by climate change. And those of you who are on the tent, I'm sure you're feeling quite warm. You must thank the regional chairman for his warm welcome to Region 3. But our coastal zone is increasingly vulnerable to the negative effects of climate change. such as rising sea levels and extreme weather conditions. Droughts and floods are occurring and recurring with greater regularity and with greater severity. This cycle of drought and flood threatens our population, threatens their access to food, and even threatens the stability of Guyana's food security. Even today, as we celebrate World Food Day, we are facing an El Niño threat in some parts of the country, particularly the Rupununi. We are experiencing a prolonged dry season, and this prolonged dry season, good for cricket, but bad for farming, bad for irrigation, bad for water supply. Our challenge, therefore, is to make agriculture more resilient, especially to protect us against the effects of the cycle of drought and flood. We also need to ensure greater food security in areas where poverty is more concentrated. For these reasons, our government will focus on the development of inland and hinterland agriculture, specifically within the intermediate and Rupununi savannas. And in this regard, I'd like to hold the Minister of Agriculture to the campaign pledge which I made to the hinterland, that during his tenure of office, however long or short it would be, he will establish a regional agricultural institute in every hinterland agricultural region. And he smiled. These regional agricultural institutes are necessary to train our young people. Too many of them, after passing CXC or CAPE, drift across our borders into Venezuela or Brazil. And some of them end up working as farm hands. Some of them work as stewards and waitresses in restaurants in Boa Vista and elsewhere in Brazil. We need to ensure that training facilities exist so that when young people leave secondary school, they can go into these hinterland agricultural institutes. But the hinterland, particularly our grasslands, in the Upper Demerara Barbies, that is the intermediate savannas, and in the Rupununi, will become our new agricultural frontiers. These grasslands will help us to produce greater quantities of food for local consumption and particularly for export to our sister Caribbean states. The Caribbean Food Export-Import Bill is more than $4 billion a year. The Caribbean has the market, Guyana has the land, and our people have the skill. Together, we can bring these resources, our capital, our talent, and our land, to bear on this huge food import bill in our region. Our Ministry of Agriculture will be focusing on pasture development, on orchards, on beef and dairy development, and infrastructure rehabilitation and development. We are on the move. Our government, even as we open up new farmlands in the hinterland, promised not to neglect agriculture in the coastland. We promise to continue to support coastal agriculture, since coastal agriculture, our rice lands and our sugar lands, remain the bedrock of agricultural production. But, ladies and gentlemen, Guyanese must never be hungry again. Our government will seek to move increasingly into more value-added food production. We will seek greater investment in agro-processing, and we will take steps to stimulate cottage industry, what we call bottom house industries, thereby creating jobs, providing reliable sources of income, particularly for women and young people coming out of school. Ladies and gentlemen, the motto of this year's World Food Day observance is social protection and agriculture. You heard a lot about social protection, but now we have to break the cycle of rural poverty. Our government is determined to ensure greater food security, and in so doing, we must produce food in greater quantities. We must protect society from hunger. We must promote better nutrition and health. We must provide employment in rural and hinterland areas, for our young people. We must work together. We must support our local farmers, and we will achieve together a poverty-free country. Today, World Food Day, we encourage all Guyanese to join in the celebration of this important international festival. We urge all Guyanese to be part of this new chapter in agriculture in our country. Let there be food for all, and may God bless you all. I thank you.
Thank you, and I don't do capital. All right, well, you have not your food drinks. You have jamu drink, sorrel,
Sir, Mr.
Thank you.
Please.
Thank you, GSA.